What is up, bandecfolks? Welcome back to Locals Only, episode 11. This is your Ontario Underground music cheat sheet. There is so much music coming out. So much of this list was albums and EPs. It is a tremendous amount of music. So you're going to be hearing stuff probably ranging from like June, July, August, and a little bit through September. We'll try to catch up on the next episode. We'll keep you guys updated with, things going on with the show, but we are always doing our best to cover everyone to, as much of a degree as we can. How are you today, Phil?
I'm doing great. Other than the Bills lost today. Boo, that sucks. No, we're doing good.
Hell yeah. So I'll just jump into it right now because we don't got time. The audience don't got time. We don't got time. We got lives. I'm not where to watch. We got times. To start off Locals Only, Hamilton Haymakers, Built on Blood, have put out a new EP, Edge of Fear. I actually saw these guys last night in Hamilton, and they put on a crazy show. That show was crazy. Have you been to the Doors in Hamilton?
I've played it several times. Oh, yeah.
It is a tiny little room with two walls that come in, and when you put a band like Reality Denied in there, it's a danger. It was crazy. It was pretty wild.
It's hot really quick.
Yeah, it was wild. Fun show, though. Saw a lot of friends. And saw Built on Blood. This is hazy and heavy hardcore. The mix is a little clearer than the last release, especially on the vocals, I found. Really good snare tone, nice rattling and like loud bass in the mix as well. The street style vocal delivery that we got used to, but I think you can hear it a lot more on this one. I love the delivery of like the laugh on the breakdown in You're to Blame. That sounds super sick. Very, very, a lot of character in that. I like the guitar work quite a bit on Soul Punisher. I think that is my favorite song on here. I love the slowdown on Deal with the Barrel. And I'm a huge fan of the album artwork on this. It actually feels like something you'd see in like the early 2000s, I found. Like the Remembering Never sort of days. I don't even know if that's a good example, but that's sort of hardcore. Like, yeah, this is pitch shit. This is great.
Yeah, I thought this was real refreshing sound coming out of Ontario hardcore. They've seamlessly blended like slam instrumentals with like an aggressive, well-digested vocals. When this first started, when I had this playing, I was totally expecting this to be like Waking the Cadaver, like pig squeals, kind of growling. But they've taken that early deathcore slam sound and unapologetically thrown hardcore, like what you said, street style, kind of youth crew vocals over it, kind of creating their own lane of their own. With slam bands like Snuffed on Sight and like Volcano being like in the scope of modern hardcore, I think Built on Blood smashed through the zeitgeist with like relentlessness, just like the Kool-Aid Man does, just unapologetically. Yeah, I give this 9 buildings out of 10 bloods.
It's back, and he even changed the number. It's back. It's back.
Next up, we have Ontario's 20-sided dice, Pathfinder, with their single Powerless. This was cool. I've been listening to a lot of classic deathcore. Like I made a playlist this week. You could check it out if you want the link. We'll leave it in the description. Listening to bands like Job for a Cowboy, Rose Funeral, Ocean O, with many others. But when Pathfinder came on, I actually thought that my phone switched it to that playlist. I thought it belongs pretty perfectly in that era. This feels like it belongs in that deathcore era, that early deathcore. I've said it before, where it comes to modern deathcore, where it really has a focus on like the most unhinged kind of vocal style with like, like bands like Lorna Shore coming to mind. I thought this didn't need to have that, and I think it was doing its own thing within the genre itself. But with that being said, like with the no kind of bells or whistles that they're kind of doing with, that's kind of how I'm labeling the like super abrasive, off the wall kind of vocals that happen in deathcore. I am calling them bells and whistles, but without that, I'm kind of concerned that fans of the genre might overlook this song just because it doesn't necessarily have that element. However, it's a fantastic song, especially if you're well established in the genre and like are familiar with it. This is super cool, straightforward track. And for that reason, I am finding 7 out of 10 paths. That's
okay,
what I wrote.
That's the joke. Yeah, this was shreddy, groovy, heavy, like tech deathcore, I'd say. Very pristine level of polish, just like the first couple tracks, or the one track. I can't remember exactly how many they have out. They've all sounded huge. Vocals sound huge. Song has a very strong sense of momentum and cohesion. The guitars and the drums are going just bonkers in this song. The groove in the lead they hit you with right before like the Brie covered breakdown at the end is super, super infectious. Yeah, just to reiterate, like these vocals just sound so huge and wet and gross. Super sick. I love these guys. They're cool as hell. All right, guys. A man who needs no introduction. Well, that'd be an introduction though, right? Fuck.
Yeah,
that's an introduction. Why would anyone ever say that?
Why is that a saying?
Why is that a thing? Anyways, Mike Froh and the Bad News have released Clifford. Now, Mike's back at it again. He's released a few tracks after this one came out as well. Looks like it's all going to be on an EP coming out soon, so we're just going to wait and talk about the whole EP when that comes out. But we wanted to at least talk about this one track for now because we had it written down. So yeah, let's get into it. Mike's vocals sound great. This is like a synthy, power indie sort of track, I'd say. Very good production quality. Super catchy, both in its hooks and its verses. It's all very memorable. Mike has dabbled in like quite a few different genres. He seems like a genuine artist. Like he's just making the type of music he wants to make. There's no trend chasing or rehashing. He could really just like try to sound like the Holly Springs Disaster again and probably become a relatively big band around here. And he's never done it once. It's sick. And I found that this track actually kind of reminded me of Bill Murray.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I was getting a Bill Murray vibe off this one. We love Bill Murray on this channel, so that is a compliment. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear this EP when it drops. This was a cool song.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Mike is a very well-established musician within the underground hardcore metalcore scene with his early band, the Holly Springs Disaster. That kind of goes without saying, but you know, for folks who don't know, he's kind of, he's dabbled in a lot of music. He even had a project called Dear Solace, kind of happening at the same time as Holly Springs, and he's done a lot of, like, stuff under his own name. He's done some, I think we've covered some covers on here. I think he did a Harry Styles cover.
The Harry Styles cover, yeah.
So like I thought this was what we were going to actually get out of this project, was something like an electronica kind of project, but this was kind of like emo. I was getting actually a lot of Hot Mulligan vibes on this, and you know how much I love my Hot Mulligan. Just kind of without those twinkly emo leads. I actually listened to the other track there, Remember Berry Pie. That one came out recently too. Yeah. And that one's kind of like a metalcore song. Okay. But like it's got like an easy core edge to it. It's really interesting to explain. Like it's almost like a Newfound Glory song in that sense, where they've kind of got like breakdowns and stuff going on, but like there's no like, it's not a Holly Spring. It's not what you expect. But like if you're a fan of him, I think you would have no problem just hopping right into this project and getting right into it, because I think he's paying. Like what you said, he could have very easily done something very similar to his old band, but this, he is doing something new, but it still feels like there's like a callback to that time, where you can go, oh, like it's recognizable. It's like a nod. It's like a subtle nod. It's not very in your face. And like if you didn't know, you wouldn't think anything of it, but if you do know, it kind of makes you enjoy it a little bit more. Next up, we have the Toronto one-man band, Kahin. Now, this was interesting. He had a single out called Whatever You Want. This was cool. It had all sorts of flavors I was getting. A little bit of emo, a little bit of indie rock, a dash of punk in there. And kind of like making this like quite catchy and big sounding. Actually, very accessible. It's a little too safe for my liking, if you're asking me. I could have thought that it could have been a little bit more elevated with just like maybe like a breakdown or maybe like a solo in there. But that's my personal take on it. It doesn't mean like it's a bad song by any means, but I feel like it kind of played it safe in that sense. But like, you know, super accessible songs don't necessarily have those elements, so it all depends on what you're trying to do as a musician, and I think they still accomplished what they were going out for.
This was a really interesting blend of like what felt like classic emo, but there's like some garage rock in there, some punk, some indie worship baked into it. It kind of feels like this really nice middle ground between like the Get Up Kids and Cage the Elephant. Really good vocal performance on here, great layering, catchy guitar work, really nice drum fills in it. Yeah, simple, effective track. I really liked it. Absorb, Hamilton Gloom have released an album, because anything over 30 minutes, from what I understand, is an album.
Yeah.
So it's an album. Smog. This is heavy, soaked in reverb, crackling feedback all over the place. Inhuman vocals, big, ambitious, long tracks. They all come in at over 8 minutes. These are like big, long, building, epic style Doom tracks where you have to wait for that big payoff at the end. I saw these guys recently too with I think Lover's Teeth, and it was so good live. They did a great job representing the sound live. The vocals cut through this mix really nice. Drums are very dense and weighty sounding. EP's drenched in a suffocating and like an anxiety inducing atmosphere, just a constant sense of like impending doom. Not the band, the sensation. The songs are very naturally. The songs very yeah. The songs very naturally flow into each other too. It makes it feel like just one big massive track. If you're looking for some stoner doom, this is some dank shit, brother.
Yeah, no. I thought the name Smog really paints a picture for what you're getting with this release. It's incredibly heavy. The thick tones, dissonant vocals make you feel like you're trapped in a smog-filled demon cave, just trying to find your way out. It's quite abysmal, like you said, and at times sludgy. I will say the vocals at the end of Cecilia were a choice. Maybe not a choice I would have gone with, but hey, I'm not absorbed. Who am I to say anything? I think the distorted laughing at the end of the song Smog was quite unsettling, and it really set the tone. I mean, we're well into the record at that point, but it really made it kind of spooky. Adding bands to like giving it like a terrifying presence for sure. Absorb came to play. They tried out some new things and overall made a cool, incredibly complex 3 songs. And for that, I give it 7 cells out of 10 cells, because cells absorb, right?
What? Not sponges, not seven ShamWows out of 10 ShamWows. ShamWows. It's ShamWows. I also just thought about the idea, or the fact, that this EP is named Smog, and they're from fucking Hamilton. That's the most that's real cool shit ever. That
never thought
I was
of that.
just
That's
there.
funny.
It's real. It'd be smoggy.
It's cool. Up next, we have the Niagara Falls Face Melters in Duskwalker with their record Underground Forever. This is cool. This is the 3rd full-length record coming out from Duskwalker. They're hard-working, multi-talented musicians that have been leading the pack in Niagara metal for a handful of years now. Joey Bricks, their vocalist, has a reputation outside the band, being one of the main voices on the local radio station here, Hits FM. He's beloved. Everyone loves him. Joey actually started in like haunted houses, kind of doing spooky voices there, and that's where he kind of like found a talent to do kind of those kind of weird growls and stuff. And he's kind of just explored it and just amplified it more throughout his projects of Duskwalker. Super cool. But this record has got lots of elements going on, especially with their guitarist John Robinson. He's like a one-man guitarist in a metal band, which is actually, I want to make sure I give him more credit that I think he deserves more credit, just because being one guitarist in a metal band is a lot. There's a lot that falls on you because like you can't necessarily bounce ideas off of another guitarist. You have other members in the band that perhaps play guitar and maybe dabble in it a little bit, but you don't have that other guitarist where you're in the same tuning and you can kind of like literally sit there and like, do you know what I mean? Really kind of just give each other the ideas. So I really want to give John the credit for that. Like maybe there is some other elements happening. Maybe their other bassist, their bassist, I believe his name is John too. Maybe he's contributing. However, it's still tough being one guitarist and filling out that sound, which I thought they did really well. This was just metal. There's no two ways about it. There's a little bit of thrash and stuff going on about it, but it's just like metal, cut and dry, which is cool because I mean I think you're going into like an accessible lane of metal where you can find bands like maybe even like Municipal Waste who kind of like really are super palatable but like kind of bridge a little bit of that hardcore and they're just kind of really metal at the same time. I like a little bit more flavor in my mellow. I like a little bit more elements, that's what I think necessarily was lacking in this. But the lyrics were super cool. The artwork is super cool. Looks like a horror movie. So by no means am I knocking it. As an experienced metal listener, I thought maybe there could have been some improvements here and there. However, if you are looking to explore your taste in metal, I think this is a great stepping stone, and Duskwalker offer a really cool live show too, especially if you've seen them live. So there's all sorts of cool things going on with them. I think I prefer their previous record over this, but by no means is this a bad record.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that it was just straight metal, because the way I described it was that it's death metal and thrash mashed together at what feels like a perfect 50-50. Like it is literally 50% of both of them. And then enough core elements in it to give like the mosh kids something to do while they're listening to it as well. Great vocal performance on this album, learning that he would like worked in like haunted houses and stuff like that. That, adds a lot of context for that. The shrieking highs and the guttural lows in this, like it all just sounds really good. He's obviously a very, very talented vocalist. Type of guitar work that leaves you with like a permanent stank faces all over this. If you're like really into like guitars and riffing, and especially like 80s thrash riffing, like this is like a band you'll really, really enjoy listening to. Drums are unrelenting. They're fast and militant. I love the hooky part on Posing Corpses. Like where they're actually like saying the song name in it. It's great. It's one of my favorites on here. I like Never Going Back, and I really like the song Vanquisher. That's a great one too. In that song, it feels like someone traveled back to the 80s with a modern day recording setup. A lot of soloing on this album is fantastic. And yeah, you were mentioning it is just one guitarist. So it's interesting to hear how he's going to split himself live in these directions, whether they use some loopers or tracks or something like that. It's definitely worth paying attention to. Inhaling Dust and Bones is a big, dragging, ambitious track. Has a much more of a focus on groove and ambience. It's a really good, really fitting closer. Yeah, this shreds. This is cool. If you're into like shreddy metal-ass metal, this is definitely it. Good friend of ours, and his buddies, I guess, because I guess we don't know his friends technically. What's up, Kyle? Shout out to you. This is the Kitchener Jam Collective Explorer with their track Tears Fall. This definitely isn't something that you would expect to see on our show necessarily, but Explorer is a band that just like it keeps putting stuff out. We're very, very good friends with one of the core members of that band. And one of the interesting things they do is on like a song-to-song basis, and sometimes during a song, they switch who's doing what. Like someone's playing bass and someone's playing drums, and they switch and stuff like that. It's just cool. This one, in terms of their catalog, is like a nice little low-key acoustic track. Reminds me of something you'd hear on like alt-rock radio in the 90s, Counting Crows, Semisonic, something like that. Very raw recording on this track. You can hear the fret buzzing on here. The drums have no compression at all. This is a raw recording. Creates a very live and authentic feeling to the track. These guys have released, several tracks since this one came out. So, and they're all so different from each other. Like, it's interesting. We cover a lot of like guttural vocals and blast beats. And these guys do everything from like 90s flavored rock to like full on instrumental jazz tracks. So like if you're looking for something a little bit more experimental, a little bit something outside of like the heavy and alternative scene, but still pays like such good homage to like art and just creativity, I recommend them. This is fun. Great like studying music maybe, you know what I mean? Chillin' music, something like that. Shout out Explorer.
I liked a lot about this track, and I'm glad that you brought up the production in this, because this is one of our first bands that I want to talk about with production. It used the lo-fi recording to its advantage, and in doing so, creating this like diamond in the rough dynamic. I'm not sure how many people have used to hearing the band Explore Trio, like you've mentioned, but they're kind of like rooted in like a jam band, like you mentioned. They kind of switch out and stuff, and like they're very psychedelic, experimental. They kind of they cover a lot of ground. This one is kind of like, it's a little bit calmer in that sense. They seem to color in the lines is actually what I wrote down here, instead of abandon old procedures and deliver us a less aggressive kind of like Menzingers-esque type song.
Okay.
Blending folk with like rock and roll together. They keep it interesting throughout the entire song, and leaving listeners wanting more. Honestly, this is a great song to get into the band, and then kind of exploring the other elements that they've got going on. I explored 7 trios out of 10 with this song, and
Hell yeah, brother.
I don't even know if that's making sense now, but no, this was cool. Montreal Corpse Catapulters, C.I.D.B, have a single called "You Shall Not Pass." A bit of a tongue-in-cheek track. Not sure if it's an anti-car, anti-gas, or anti-traffic. One of those things for sure. But I know, as a matter of fact, you're one of those things if you live in Montreal, because that place is a nightmare to drive. The song is very much focused on its message and its delivery. Almost a little too focused at times. I feel like the song loses its bearings in the midst of it. Very lyrically driven. Hardly any melodies going on. There's a lot of open notes and like airy stuff going on. So that's why like the focus of the message seems to be the focal point. But that's not super surprising from the band's like carefree DIY attitude. This is kind of what we expect from a band like this. I wish it was a little bit more kitschy, but they have other songs that kind of do that too. So in the grand scheme of songs, at least it doesn't sound like something else that they've already put out. And like honestly, it's cool. So like we're talking about like anti-cars and it's like a funny, but it's also kind of a serious issue too, but like the way that they're delivering it is such a like playful manner. And it's like I said, Montreal sucks, so to drive in. Montreal sucks to drive in. I want to that's how I felt about it. 7 cars out of 10.
I can't believe you didn't bring up the goddamn Gandalf sample at the beginning, where they actually go, "You shall not pass" at the beginning of the song. It's sick. It's so funny. I'm sorry, it's the best song I've heard by them so far simply because of that. This song definitely conjures more of like a metal thing than the previous tracks we checked out. It has like an epic sort of sword swinging progression. I don't know exactly what to call those notes. They just remind me of like medieval fights. Makes you think of like token books that the song is referencing with its name. Great guitar solo in this one too. I love how every song we've heard from this band, like it has its own vibe going on. Like they've all sounded pretty different from each other. This feels like a This Is Hell song, but if it was more focused on being punk than hardcore or like metal core, if for lack of a better word for This Is Hell. Yeah, I love these guys. I can't wait for this full release to drop. I want it all. Give me it now. And I genuinely believe that this band is going to be getting our bandy for album artwork because it's so good. It's every time they drop a single, I get to look at that silly ass EP cover again. The band with the most Canadian name. It's the Northern. They dropped a single a while back, A Place of Solace. This string of singles that's been coming out from the Northern have been so fun and varied. This one being like very techy. It has some great use of post-production editing and like electronic ambience. Mike as always just gives a brutal vocal performance. He really is like a great dialed in vocalist. When you really listen to his tone, he nails it live too. If Usurper was supposed to be the song that like made you mosh the most, and Drown was supposed to be the song that made you like sing along the most, this is the song where they really flex like the full scope of their technical chops. Yeah, we love these guys. Beyond being like a very talented band, these guys are just great dudes. They're funny. They're so much fun to see live because they just have such like a... It's such a vibe that I can't explain. I'll forever remember that show with them and Resistor because it was like a small low-key show and it was just like everyone was friends. Like everyone in the crowd just immediately became friends with the bands. It was such a cool vibe. Go see the Northern live. It's really, really fun.
Yeah, these are hard-working individuals striving to give you top-notch product while keeping themselves interesting and entertaining. They're fun, like you just said. I really like the guitar tone on this track. It cuts like a knife with those like pops and like stops. This is right up there with Architects, Devil Wears Prada, and like Counterparts. This is top-notch production. This is an example of top-notch production doing I don't want to say it's doing a lot of work because the performance on this track is very good. It's also top-notch. This is an example of just high-quality performance and high-quality production. A match made in heaven. You can tell that these folks have been playing this kind of music for over a decade. They're well-rooted in a metalcore genre. But it's really good, and like I say, like it's the quality is there. Like it's up there like at a professional level. Like you could see these folks playing like a big stage. You could easily see this, and they deserve honestly like a platform like that, because these folks are they believe like are on par with a major label band. Like if this was in the boom of the early metalcore, like they'd be supporting for like August Burns Red, no doubt. Like you know what I mean? Like just keep up the great work, guys. Like we love to see it, and just and just keep it up, because it's fantastic and it's great. Honestly, we love it, especially for the area. All right, next up we have Southern Ontario's surrounding disrespecters, like A Day to Remember song, right?
They can't all be amazing. Okay, I write a lot of these. It's not bad. It's good. Yes, the A Day to Remember song.
Debellation, with a demonstration of debellation. I can't get through this word. A demonstration of like, which I think is an interesting. I actually am just picking up on it because it's a demonstration, a demo.
Yeah,
like,
I love that.
Yeah. So this was a very ambitious record. A lot of ideas being thrown at the wall with this band and release. There's some pig squeals in there. There's some thrashing solos. There's some growls. There's some yells. There's some screams. It has a lot going for it. The one thing I don't think they have clear is an idea of what they want to make it sound like altogether, cohesively. Because there's a lot going on in these songs. Well, the songs are interesting, and the sounds that are happening in it certainly are innovative at times. I feel like the production on this release kind of holds it back, because there's a lot of ideas happening in these songs, and I feel like they could have been executed if the production was just at a bit of a higher level. Now, I understand high production isn't always readily available, especially when you're in a new band. This is maybe your first release. I totally understand that. This is a demonstration of them. It says it right in their title. So perhaps someone could hear that, and a following future release could be elevated with a bit more production. That's all I think I'm saying, because there's a lot of ambitions and things that are happening on here. Really cool though. Kind of reminds me of being in like when I first was playing music, and like in some of my first bands, and like playing all those cool shows and stuff like that, and just having a good time. You weren't really necessarily focused on what you were playing. You were just focused on having a good time and making sure that everybody in the crowd was having a good time. And I imagine that a band like this probably does a fantastic job at this. Although I kind of felt like this was a little bit half-baked and could have gone in the oven a little bit better with a little bit of the production, it's a demo, so we'll see where this band comes with, because I believe this is their first release, if I'm not mistaken. I looked into it a little bit. So that's how I felt about it. Just reminds me of maybe not necessarily focus on the sound as much as just having fun and being in a band with your friends, which, don't get me wrong, you're allowed to do that. I mean, who am I to say that you can't? That's a fun time.
Hazy and metallic hardcore. Like you were saying, this is the first full demo from the band, and I love that it's called a demonstration of Debellation. I'm surprised I've never heard something like that before. So it's clearly what demo means, a demonstration, and I never even thought about that. Vocal, like genuinely, that's just occurring to me now. Vocal delivery, I'm going to say this a few times in this list, and there's going to be times where it's more accurate than others. But this is one of those moments where the vocals here really remind me of the OG Your Demise vocalist, particularly on the first track. Because he does get kind of death metal-y here. But that first track, that throaty, desperate type of scream he's doing, I'm hearing Your Demise, and I hear them a few times on here. There's a lot of solid chug riffs. I like the use of the harmonics throughout. Imminence is like a more metal track. Even the vocal delivery there is hitting way more of like a death metal growl than the yelling we got on the first track. HCH has some really interesting rhythm work. Probably my favorite song on the demo, especially the song ends in like this abysmal breakdown with like, again, those just like gross sounding pig squeals in this. Sacrifice is the final track. It feels more like a thrash metal song with a death metal style vocal delivery over it. Yeah, very cool, very fast, very brutal. And like you were saying, like really reminds me of when you're just sort of writing songs for fun versus having this like blueprint and plan towards a sound. It feels very liberated in that aspect. Toronto Sad Boys Nakedburn released a single called Safe to Say, and then they released a redux of that single called Safe to Say. The original Safe to Say has some great use of electronics, beautiful vocal performance, and it's probably the closest we've gotten so far to like a pop song that Nakedburn has really gotten themselves to. Um, which really made the redux work because the style of the song just lends itself so perfectly to a more stripped back and live feeling version. The video for it as well, I've seen the video for the redux. It's shot beautifully. It reminds me of those like MTV Unplugged specials they used to do with like the nice lighting and stuff. And yeah, after talking to these guys in our interview, check that out if you haven't, by the way, you can really tell that these guys just like love writing this stuff. They have plenty of stuff like up their sleeve coming in the future. And yeah, this song has just kind of stayed stuck in my head. This and Lie Awake. Like I Lie Awake is in my head a lot, actually. Yeah. I'm excited to hear all the stuff these guys have coming. It's it seems like it's just the beginning for them.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's not many bands we cover here on Locals Only that do reduxes of their own song. Frankly, I'd like to hear it more. The tune, Safe to Say, it's hard not to think of the once well-established Toronto local band, Safe to Say, who I had a chance to tour with, Super Heaven, when they were called Daylight at the time.
Okay.
So that's what I think of when I think of Safe to Say. But anyway, this is yeah, I really like this. This was like a beautiful song. This is a song I will say, this is a song you make when you're in the doghouse with your partner and you showcase your talent and ability and you kind of wrap it with a nice little bow. It's a cute song, don't get me wrong. I think it's cute, but it also reminds me of like like someone being in high school and kind of like losing a girlfriend and trying to make a song to get them back or something, maybe doing something to maybe cheating on them and then making, because he says like I'm the one to blame or something. Yeah, no. I like the Redux version more, if I'm being honest.
Me too, I think.
I think it just kind of like, I don't. They did something special with it, and I thought that was really interesting. Not that the first one's bad, but it also kind of brings me to a moment where like when Slipknot does like Vermilion 1 and Vermilion 2, and like the acoustic version is like they're both very, very good songs, but they're like two different songs and they make it work. I think they kind of were doing something like that with this tune. It was great. You said, yeah, I didn't get to check out the video, but it's Nakedburn, so I can almost guarantee it's shot well, right? You said you checked it out, because this is a multi-talented band. They've got a lot going for them. They have a lot of their bases covered, that's for sure. And keeping it at a professional level, especially like right out of the gates, you know what I mean? Like they just kind of went,
oh yeah,
and like they're a brand new band, and they've got all this cool stuff going for them. Yeah, no, if they've got a graphic designer in the band, which I think they do, it's game over. Like they've got everything covered. Like it's good. We love to see it too. We love to see like a band just like hop on the scene, get to talk to, be really cool people, and then also like succeed and just kind of make their presence known, as well as Nakedburn does. So yeah, awesome. Next up, we have Quebec City Slam for 4-1 Hate. They put out Putrescence.
Putrescence, maybe?
Putrescence. Much like how Built on Blood's latest release is like a hardcore-driven deathcore EP, this is a deathcore-driven hardcore EP. It actually reminds me a lot of the band Elsia or Elijah, who very much were like a deathcore band, but like played with a lot of hardcore bands and were very much in that scene, more so than like, because like deathcore really wasn't established. That's kind of where they grew up, was in the hardcore scene. So they had like the hardcore tropes in the merch with like the bold font. Yeah, and it has that very much like hardcore attitude, kind of like attached to it. I like how it doesn't have comment, like we're not getting like the machine gun double kicks with this. We're not getting the animalistic vocals or like those super like airy like dun. You're not gonna get in there these kind of songs, or even like Breeze. Oh no, sorry. This song actually does offer Breeze. Sorry, that's what I have written down. It does offer Breeze, and the slammy breakdowns are still there. It's still there, but they're not like those big airy ones. Yeah, no, the production level was right where it needed to be at, like a release like this. Of course, I'm a fan of high production, so I don't necessarily think it needed it. So this was good. This was really good. Perhaps for a later release, they could go with a higher production, but like for where this needed to be, for where they're at, like this was good. This is what we wanted to hear.
Grimy, yeah. This is another one where I gotta say right off the bat that I love the album artwork. This looks like it could have been like an alternative game cover for like the game Manhunt or something like that. It's giving me like PS2 era ultra violence video game cover. Fits the brutality that this band brings sonically. I love the wet, droney, chuggy, like death metal that they have going on here. A lot of pig squeal vocals on this. I was getting worried when you said that. I'm like, did we listen to the same band? Because there were quite a few pig squeals all over the place. You love to see it.
Yeah.
The song's just such a natural transition that when the song Snuff stopped and went into the next track after that, I couldn't even tell it happened. If it wasn't for the samples, I would probably never be able to tell. Like, it all flows really, really well. I love the track Silverback Gorilla. It's an unrelenting assault of chuggy riffs played at constant, like, varying speeds. Love the mix on the drums and this song, and the whole EP. Claim Domination is another fun track. The bouncy two-step riff in this one does a good job of breaking up the chug riffs. Blooming Rot is actually like a bit more of a dynamic track. It's got some very inhuman-sounding vocals on it, but it's still just constantly hitting you with these like slow, menacing breakdowns. Yeah, if you want your music to just sound violent, this is that. This sounds violent. Southern Ontario DIY. Moe Killed My Cool with Broken for the Better. Lo-fi, shimmery, Midwest emo with an absolutely agonized vocal delivery. Very bouncy track despite the melancholy like tone of the guitars and like the overall mood of the track. I feel like if I listened to this song in a vulnerable state, I'd get teary-eyed. Like, it's genuine, it executes the emotion that it's trying to capture absolutely perfectly.
You already know what I'm going to say. And if you don't already know what I'm going to say, I'm disappointed in you, Tyler.
God. Please, just talk. Why couldn't you say to the audience? Why does it have to be me specifically?
This was a home run for me, man. I love emo. This was an absolute blowout. What kind of review would you expect from a guy who loves Hot Mulligan? This was kind of feeling like in that like lo-fi, post-emo sounding Midwest, like earlier like Hot Mulligan work. Like that's what I'm getting from this early Hot Mulligan. But this is great. You know what the biggest difference I found from that? It was they didn't have as many twinkly riffs, which is kind of where Hot Mulligan is now. They didn't have so much of that in their earlier work. So, no, this was great. I really like this. This was like emo with like shoegaze, tonal-driven songs. Moe Killed My Cool kind of carve out their own thing within like this like scene. Like, there's not too many like emo bands doing their thing in this scene nowadays, and which is weird because you and I actually grew up in a scene where like emo bands were like the thing. They were like almost, there was a lot of them going at the time, and to see that there's not too much of it happening, and I really like it. This is an example of low production not needing to do what it needs to do, and like the song being a good catchy song, kind of tragic sounding with those vocals, kind of get the point across without that high production. This is what I'm saying. Like, you don't need high production, but you can make it work for you if your songs are well written and produced well. Yeah, this is 8 Moes killed out of 10 cool.
Oh, no, it's so many Moes.
Well, sorry, Mo. We killed you. Next up, we have the off-leash team-up, Klokwise and Doflame. I don't know how you pronounce that. I think it's Doflame, but who knows?
Come on the show.
Comment down below.
Come on the show and tell us.
Come on the show. Yeah, let us set it straight. This is Let It Pop. I didn't even need to check my now playing to know that this was Klokwise when I came on. They've like said they have such a distinct sound, which is like it's perfect. That's what you want. That's what you want as a band. You're like creating your own originality for it. And Klokwise always delivers. They all, we cover them pretty often. I'd say almost every locals only. Klokwise has somehow made their way onto the list here, and like this. I mean, what's to say about Klokwise that hasn't already been said? We love them. It's super good. It's so refreshing. It's like new metal. It takes the cheesy elements that happened in new metal back in like Korn, Limp Bizkit, and makes them cool. I don't even know how else to describe this. Like, it's so interesting, and I don't even know. And like you and I grew up in an age where like Limp Bizkit was like the groundbreaking MTV band. And like everybody was talking about them, which was weird in a world where like it's kind of metal sounding, right? So this was like we grew up in like the Linkin Parks and like so I don't this was super cool. And like what Doflame came on here, and I wrote down, think of a angry Flavor Flav, but like tongue in cheek, like and it still has those like the same punchlines that Limp Bizkit would offer too. This is as someone, like I said, someone grew up in this era, it's so cool to hear this sound. There's no one doing it like this. Like nowadays, you don't hear this, and we love it. I love it. It's awesome. If you haven't heard of Klokwise, we talk about them almost every episode of Locals Only. But if you're new to this and you've never heard of Klokwise, check them out because they marry new metal, hardcore, pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, I love Clock here. I'll get into it. I love Klokwise. As of recording this, Klokwise does have another single out called Bustin' Out. It looks like they're building towards an EP or like, God, if we're lucky, an album. I'd love to get an album. So we're just going to talk about Let It Pop today, and then when that like full length drops, we'll get into all the tracks that come out in the future. So Clock, when you drop, we'll talk about it. Let It Pop fucking rules. These are the absolute kings of new metal now. I love all our locals that we talk about on this channel, but Klokwise is truly one of my favorite bands in Ontario right now. I love this band. Hook on this one is crazy. I love the guitar work on here. It's so Borland coded. The weird bending on the hook, the harmonics at the end of the riffs, like everything is just so Borland coded. Doflame tears up the track. This band just doesn't miss. Like, they're writing literal instant classics. DGAF is a instant classic song. It's so good. Like it's great. Yeah, if you haven't yet, you need to wise the fuck up, and you need to go check out Klokwise. They're too good. They're too good. We love you guys. Please drop an album. Toronto Goss, Give My Remains to Broadway. Have a single out called Coke. They're back with another misanthropic dance banger. It's drenched in drama. I love the synth work on this one. It's very, very dreamy this time around. These guys release singles all the time, so go check them out. And I would really like to get like a nice, proper full length, so I can get something that really holds my attention on them before, my Spotify auto switches me to another band. It sounds more or less what we've heard from them, but I've liked all of these tracks that we've gotten from them. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? That's what they say, right? That one makes more sense.
That's what they say. This might be one of my favorite bands that we like to cover here on Locals Only, just because there's not any other bands that I know that we cover on this that sound like them. They're definitely super unique in that sense. And I'm right there. Like, I love that kind of stuff, that like Joy Division, Cure, Bauhaus, kind of like I'm a sucker for that kind of like moody goth kind of sound. But this is kind of like Worship. That's definitely in that lane, but like with more modern themes kind of throughout their lyrics. I especially like the little nuances with this band. Just like even like that quick twinkle that happens right when the song ends. Just like little things like that I appreciate and I think is super cool. Sure, you could probably make an argument about how like the vocals aren't like the most palatable, but I think it's true to the genre, and it also helps really characterize this band. I actually really like the vocals, but I can definitely understand how someone wouldn't. That's for sure. Because they're embedded, they're rooted really in that goth genre. But I think I've said this before when we've covered them before. I would love to see their live performances. I can only imagine how theatric and dramatic it would be live. Like, I just feel like, their songs are super moody and dramatic. Like, I have to imagine like their performances right up there. It would probably be really cool. But yeah, this is super. This is like a sad, upbeat song, unique, and I love jamming it. I liked it a lot. Right on. Next up, we have Niagara Metal, Stuck in Neutral. With their single Heart Attack. Now, Stuck in Neutral are showing us why they belong in the big four Welland, Metalcore, Sky Caught Fire, Mindswell, Us Alike being the other three. Metalcore seems to really be thriving in Welland specifically. I said Niagara Metal at the beginning, but this is if you want to scope a little, zoom in, you want to hit that plus button on the Google Maps and zoom in just a little further. We're talking about Welland here, and they seem to. The metalcore seems to be thriving within their something in the water there. That metalcore seems to be thriving. I think there's something to be said because there was a lot of cool bands like Welland Hardcore coming out 20 odd years ago, and I think it's left its impression. Some of the folks in some of the bands that I've already mentioned are in those bands even today, which I think also adds to why there's so much happening in that area. High production wasn't necessarily an element 20 years ago, so we have interesting songs with the mid-scooped, and we have bands like Poison the Well that maybe didn't have songs that aged well if you were to listen to them for the first time today, but because you're such a sucker for nostalgia, you'll kind of enjoy them. That's what I think kind of Stuck in Neutral were kind of they were paying respect to that older style of metalcore, and I feel like you hear it within this song, giving us the classic tropes of an established MySpace metalcore band.
Yeah, very interesting actually. I had very similar thoughts. It feels like a solid throwback to metalcore from the early 2000s before it became overproduced. I literally wrote down overproduced. And formulaic before there was a full blueprint on what makes a modern day metalcore song. There was a lot of creativity in those days, and I feel like this fits really well in that camp. It feels like a very honest homage to that. It's atmospheric, it's groovy, nice speedy flow from the vocalist throughout the track. Gives it a little bit of a personality that makes it stand a bit above that. Don't know what I meant by that. Gives the song personality. Pretty solid lead guitar work throughout the track as well. Yeah, this is a cool track. I like it. Yeah, Montreal Mosh Makers, Cold Authority have released an album called Ash and Blood. This is more of that good old thrashy hardcore that I love. We've enjoyed every single from them leading up to this release. Happy to report that the quality remains more or less consistent throughout the entire release. Solid drums, solid mix. Drums are tight and techy. Guitar work is great. I'm a sucker for thrash riffs that are repurposed as two-step parts. It's one of my favorite things. I love that shit. That just keeps happening in this album.
Yep.
I also love pinch harmonics, and that also keeps happening all over this. This band has plenty of fast riffing for circle pit parts, some interesting breakdown ideas like the song Overflow. Payback is still one of my favorites. The mosh call and the murder chord breakdown right after it just rules. Great gang vocal usage on this album. Guillotine uses the gang vocals really, really well. Yeah, there's not a bad song on here. This album sticks to the same recipe throughout, but they've measured the ingredients perfectly, and they've baked one hell of a tort. Is that the French word for pie? Is it a tort?
Yeah, no, Cold Authority with Ash and Blood. This is the first release from the band, from the band from Montreal. And we're always talking about how Montreal and Quebec have a really cool hardcore community embedded within the scene. And what I particularly enjoy about Montreal and Quebec is there's the collaboration that's constantly happening. You see it happening throughout this record with all sorts of, we got Death Nap on this here. Scorching Tomb, I think is I can't remember. There was a couple other bands being featured on this, which was super cool. The collaboration's awesome. It reminds me, do you remember when Skip the Foreplay has that one? I don't know if you're familiar with that band. They have this one song that featured the vocalist from Blind Witness, the guy from Blessed by a Broken Heart, and then the guy from Despised Icon, and it was a song just about Montreal, and it was like this super cool, like, it was a super cool song. I can't remember what it was called, but that's what this is reminding me of, just like, you really get that collaboration, and you kind of get that feeling from this release. And yeah, like, what's to say about Cold Authority that we haven't already said leading up to with these singles? Yeah, it's very, anti-authority. It's just pissed off, politically driven record, right? They've got a lot to talk about, which, rightfully so. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world that you can write songs about, and that's what they're doing here. And this is like, it's got a straight sense of street style with like beatdown, metal, and hardcore elements throughout like each song. Think like Madball with like more pronounced breakdowns and like mosh calls, but like, yeah, Cold Authority, and especially within the Montreal scene, just cranking another one out. Like, we love to see it. They're masters at what they do. There's something. So the French really understand how to play metal, hardcore, thrash, tech death. They cover it all. It's a very impressive what comes out of that area. And Cold Authority, you just add that to that list. Terminvl, their single Holotov. Yeah, so this is like a somewhat new band, Terminvl. I mean, they've been around for a bit, but they're doing like the single route. That's what they're doing. I don't think they're putting out EPs. But this is a friend of the show, Nate. He's been on the show before. He was in his other band, Gouge Out. This has kind of been like, this is cool. Nate does this like Keith Buckley scream that I was getting like every time I die in like the Chariot. If there was like singing involved, that'd be like right on the Every Time I Die nose, especially just with this like vocal delivery. But like there's no like math elements to it. Like to take like that math element from Every Time I Die out, there's just kind of more like a post hardcore, like early Every Time I Die if we're talking. I kept returning to these songs, and even like the vocal patterns, because it's necessary. Like and what they're saying is like intricate, kind of like a Keith Buckley like lyrical style.
Yeah, I got a little southern edge in this one. It felt a little southy. There's a great performance on here from everyone, especially on the vocals. It's interesting you were getting Keith Buckley because I was getting Liam from the Cancer Bats, like Hail Destroyer era.
Oh,
like,
cool.
Yeah, I couldn't get it out of my head when I like put that together. And instrumentally, very techy and tight, infinitely moshable. Actually, kind of reminds me of Great American Ghost. So this is almost like if Liam from Cancer Bats was in the band Great American Ghost, which is great.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like the talking part. The talking part was pretty sick.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to go into that mosh riff. Yeah, this band rules.
It's easy to screw up a talking part.
100%. It's easier to screw it up than to not. So, Hometown Hero, Terminator, was on a compilation record, and on there is their track Washed Clean, although I believe that they said that wasn't actually the title, that they got the title wrong. So maybe it's Washed Clean. It's listed as Washed Clean, so if you want to listen to it, type in Terminator, Washed Clean. Best vocal performance we've heard from Shay so far, in my opinion. Song has a nice punk feeling throughout it. Much more than like that first EP. That first EP was very moshy. This feels punk. Instrumentally, actually kind of reminded me of Comeback Kid. Breakdown at the end is great. I like the Southie vibe in the main riff here. Yeah, the Terminator's doing big things. They just played with Speed. They're already, I believe they're signed. Yeah. Like they're doing great, and I love to see it. Such a great band.
Yeah, so I mean, we love Shay and the one person project. This is super cool, and of course we have like our homie Squires playing live with them on drums, who plays in Reality Denied and my band Sinner. So that's cool. So we obviously love that collaboration. Shay has actually let me know that when we covered the first demo that they put out. That Bo and Jamie also had a bit of contribution on some of these songs. So it's not just a one-person project, but they're doing a lot to make it happen. And like you said, they opened up some crazy shows in Toronto. Yeah, like you said, Speed
and Angel Dust.
Dominating like the scene right now. Yeah, that's absolutely insane.
And so if like you were to just hear this at like, and maybe you're not necessarily familiar with hardcore or punk, you would probably take it at like a surface level. But like, what's really interesting about this music and the way that it's written is it's built to maximize pit movement. Like it's so dialed in that like there's nothing not done on purpose with this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, all killer.
Like you can all killer. You can absolutely feel like when the things are going to happen, like how the live show would go. Lots of energy. Super cool. This is another example of where lo-fi production makes the music simple and like just comes across in a very simple manner, and you don't need to. When you start adding bells and whistles, when you start doing these bigger things, that's when you kind of need bigger production. But when you have good, solid, well-performed riffs that, may not, like, you can make the argument that, I've heard this from this band and this for. But, like, the fact is, this is a new band, and this is now. This is, like, the bands that don't exist. There's plenty of bands that don't exist now that make sound like this. But this is a brand new sound. This is a brand new band. So, of course, it's more exciting. And you don't need high production for that. It's very just... You could make the argument that this song came out in the 80s because it has that authentic sound and kind of like callback to that. But it's maximized pit movement. It knows. It knows. Because like maybe back then it wasn't as a sociable thing. Because like a mosh pit is a very social thing nowadays. Whereas back then it wasn't like people didn't know what like two-stepping, spin kicking. It was all just like spastic. I don't know if you can use that word. It was all very like sporadic movement,
improvised.
And there was no
plan, no
titles
choreography
for that kind of stuff. So in that sense, it's dialed in. Yeah, loved. This was only a 2-song release, and then like I think the one was just like an intro song. So like very simple. Cut like you don't need that. You don't need that, folks. If you're in a band, don't overthink it. Terminator tells us that. Next up, we've got the Gilbert Godfrey Core band, Ruff Puff. Ruff Puff did this thing to me that often happens to me with music. I will hear it, and I will go, no, I do not like this. I do not like this. And then I will listen to it a couple more times, and then it does this thing where I'm like, oh my God, I'm in love with this.
Okay, there it is.
The unique vocals that happen with this, like I said, first time I listened, my brain, and it does this with a lot of bands that I actually end up loving. They were so different sounding that my brain went, you've never heard this before, and you kind of went like, I don't know what to do with this, and then you kind of, the more you listen to it, this is like, this is super unique, and I really like this. Like I said, Gilbert, the vocals are straight up Gilbert Godfrey, relentless, like obnoxious, gritty old man sounding. But like not like old man sounding in the sense that they're complaining about something. It just sounds like back. My back's hurting me. And I can't.
That's complaining.
I guess it is complaining.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Hardcore is essentially just
it's like
washable complaining.
Yeah. Like the vocals are like a cartoon mobster, like / goon, like you know what I mean, like a New York goon. This is over the top voice, which I truly have to imagine that's like it's a choice. Obviously, it's not like maybe that's actually the vocalist's voice. I mean, that's the case for that. Was it the one Dan someone from the listener? Like he actually sounds like that when he talks. So it's not like a gimmick, right?
He might be doing that though. He might just be talking like that now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw him under the bus. There's no way. There's no way as a kid he grew up talking like that.
This is very much traditional hardcore though. It sounds like it came out of the 80s and 90s. I personally found that the music to be good, but like it was like not bad by any means. But like the vocals are really what I was focusing on the most, and like maybe that's just because I'm a vocalist myself. And I tend to drive myself towards bands that have unique kind of sounding vocals. And this was great. It had its 2-steps, it had its breakdowns. I really enjoyed what it was happening sonically. It was all wrapped neatly in a bow with and it's very interesting. And if anyone lives looking for like a new hardcore flavor,
who feel like you've heard it all, check out Ruff. What a cool name, Ruff Puff.
Yeah, it's a great name for a piece of merch. I'd love to see what their merch looks like because their name is just so sick. I feel like you'd have so much fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw these guys at the Rush shoot.
Oh, you saw them
for the Rush. Yeah, I saw them way back. Like when Russ did their music video shoot, they opened up for that show and they put on a great show. And then I've just kind of been waiting for a recording to surface since. Yeah, traditional hardcore through and through, executed very, very well. Big reverbed out yells. I do agree. They're begging for mic grabs. It's such an attention grabbing vocal style. There's thick guitar tones on here, big weighty drums, big old two steps, big old loose breakdowns, introspective lyrics about overcoming odds and saying fuck you to the people who mistreat you. Everything you would want out of Moshi hardcore is just absolutely here in spades. This is a great first impression. Flower City, melodic hardcore, Unfathomed, has released an EP called Redcast Sky.
Mm-hmm.
The ultra dense drums here and shredding leads over punishing chug riffs are great. I like the piercing screams. A lot of profound lyrics about self-improvement. There's a lot of constant atmospheric leads happening throughout here as well. This band kind of reminds me of like the golden years of melodic hardcore, things we've brought up before. It Prevails, 100th, all that good stuff. The cleans are used in a more interesting way than you would expect a band like this to do. It's sort of similar to the way that Alexis on Fire uses them on the album Watch Out, like with the layering, maybe some early Emery as well. I love the interlude over a Windswept Valley. I love the guitar work on that interlude, and it leads really well into the very dynamic and multifaceted Cold Womb, which hits like a great balance between the vocal styles that are going on there. And Returnal is a great closer. Returnal is also one of my favorite video games of all time, so shout out them for putting respect on its name. I love to see that. I'd love to see these guys live and just see how they managed to bring this all together.
Yeah, early 2000s metalcore. I was getting early Den Divine vibes from this, specifically that first record. The clean vocals are interesting. They kind of sound like they would be almost better suited in like an emo project, but they sound cool and unique in like this metalcore kind of like way, like kind of like what you were saying. Like this was like they were using them to its full potential. It was really cool and kind of like refreshing sounding in that sense. I really like that clean guitar work that's happening here. The melodies that this release had to offer. This was like really well performed, and especially on like the musicianship what's going on amongst the band between each member for sure. This is cool. This is cool metalcore. Northern Shoegaze, Seventh Dose, have Allure. Which is a single, right? That's what we got here. This has everything that you'd expect from the footwear gawkers, just what I wrote down. Drone chords soaked in chorus pedals.
Such a dad joke. I can't believe you. I can't believe you.
This is drone chords soaked in chorus pedals and haunting vocals. Delicately placed over top, like almost with like tweezers, the way that they've kind of like put them in the pockets there. It's really cool. It feels like the song is kind of like underwater, like washed with effects. That is what I'm trying to say. I like Seventh Dose because they feel authentic, and it feels like they belong like with the shoegaze juggernauts like that came out of the 90s, that they're like kind of recreating that sound with like My Bloody Valentine and like bands like that. Super cool. They make it authentic sound, and you can tell they're very well established within, like they're well versed in the genre for sure. They know what they're doing. I'm not too familiar. I don't listen to a whole lot of shoegaze myself, so when I hear like a local band like this, I can tell that they're doing everything right that needs to happen within the genre, and like I think that they're killing it. It was a cool track.
Dreamy, atmospheric, and melancholy. It's drenched in like wobbly, cracking feedback and bass. Very, very reserved vocal delivery. They take the shoegaze sound and they find a great balance between sounding lo-fi with still having a good and like distinguishable production. All the elements end up in this like static wash, but the like instruments and the vocals and stuff, they're all still very discernible from each other. It's a wall of sound, but it's cleaned up in a way that I really appreciate. Yeah, the song's a vibe. I like it. These guys are so cool, and I think like they have such like a trippy element to their sound. I really like it. North Glengarry Punk and Roll. Tucana, I believe. Tucana. Cat is They have a track out called Old Blood. This is a catchy, punchy, rowdy punk rock track. Very powerful vocal delivery on here. Bright and slinky guitar tone. A lot of satisfying drum fills. If you're a fan of bands like Polar Bear Club or like Crime in Stereo, maybe, you'll probably dig this a whole bunch.
Well, we've talked about this band before with their previous singles, and I recall how interesting of a sound that they have. They blend a lot of cool genres together, giving like a sense of originality. Kind of like the drug church kind of comes to mind with that clean, kind of like a punk style singing. Yeah, they've been dropping singles since like last June, and like a lot of the artwork is kind of very similar. So maybe we're getting like a whole record out of this, or maybe they're just doing the single route, because like that is that's like a way that bands do it, like work these days. Melodically driven song, aggressive, dreamy in its way that it blends the upbeat chords and passionate lyrics. This is catchy, bouncy, and kind of like an indie art rock punk kind of thing. I'd have to imagine this band has a lot of energy for a lot of their live set. Like it just feels like they would pack a punch. Because like the performances in the recording are very tight, like very, very well played. So yeah, they're constantly turning heads, and we can't wait to see what else this band has in store, because they just keep doing these singles, and I would like to see a collection of songs on like a record. Next up, we have Montreal extreme metal Braindown with From the Sewers EP. This has some big red chord energy going on to it, like blending tech metal vibes with like death metal, kind of like earning its rightful place amongst the other tech death bands. It's fast, it's complex, it's overall super heavy, full of deep growl, intricate guitar works, insane drum patterns. Kind of like band name like Braindown, you can't help but think Brain Drill, which also kind of offer the same kind of things and elements. So this band's
better than Brain Drill.
Oh yeah, for sure. But they're doing.
I can't stand it. Brain Drill's too much.
They're doing what they need to be doing.
Funny.
Braindown.
Yeah.
What they're doing is very intricate, is what I'm trying to say. So it's super cool. I like that. From the Sewers kind of gave you. I like that name too, because it's very gritty and gross, but fast. Kind of like a red chord, just big red chord energy.
Yeah, this one goes bananas. The guitar work, the insane drumming, the soaked and enormous vocals. Everything in this album is just completely unrelenting. It's infectious. The grooves in this are also ultra pitable. And they embrace the just absolutely over-the-top zany naming conventions.
Yes.
Like Fetus Muncher and Dick Thief. Both those songs are bangers, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, they're really good. Dick Thief is a great song, man.
Yeah, you'll never forget it.
This band has some of the flashiest soloing I think we've heard on Locals Only.
Yeah.
Like, it's really, really high level. Breakdowns are fast and tight as hell. There's so much oomph in this mix. It just sounds so thick and filled out. This was sick. This was so good. Windsor Gent, among the rest, have a song out called Season Unending. This is equal parts heavy and melodic, low-tuned, complex rhythms, big epic clean parts, washing leads, very tight, precise drum work. This is probably for fans of bands like Veil of Maya, Born of Osiris, bands like that. This is a very ambitious band, and if you're into that sort of proggier side of the genre, this is a band that for sure keep an eye on.
The two elements that really kind of stuck out for me was like the singing and like that really down-tuned guitar work that's happening in this. They could have explored it a little bit deeper. I think I have written down here, because there was not too much necessarily happening in between the stuff. But like I said, there's a lot of room. They've kind of set the playing field, and I think that they can really crank another one out come next single. Stone Cold Montreal hardcore band Freezerburn with their Promo 24. What is it about hardcore bands that always like to incorporate coldness in their band name? You know, we got Cold World, Fire and Ice, Cold Shoulder, Colder Than Ever, Ice in My Veins, Just Ice, Frozen Soul. That's just to name a handful off the top of my head.
Trapped Under Ice.
Trapped Under Ice.
Say Trapped Under Ice?
Yeah, no, I don't even think I had them in there. But like,
maybe the reason this is happening.
Oh yeah, I guess so. And that's just a Metallica song. Anyway, that's super cool. Freezerburn follow trend in the chilling list of names that I've just mentioned, making it easy to remember their brand. That's for sure. This demo is simple and effective. They offer the same kind of like beat down that we've like necessarily heard from some of the other big bands and the contenders of this genre. It's chock full of breakdowns, mosh calls, two steps. The production is lacking a little, but this is okay. This doesn't need a high production value. But what's cool about this is because it's a promo, is like you know, someone catches wind and they do play something in their releases in a couple years or something like that, and you would hear an elevated version of it because you could hear the potential within the little production that's happening in this, but it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't need it to make it a better song by any means. Which is, like I said, it could be overlooked because they're branded as a demo. Would love to hear what this sounds with just a little bit more production, but they're right where they need to be. Freezerburn, super cool. How can you not like it? I like the imagery that comes with the EP too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like these. These 2 tracks are like total ass kickers.
Yeah.
So the mix on this is like it's thicker than a Snicker, Phil.
Did you write that down?
What does that mean? Of course not. I'm not reading off a script right now. No, even this word is not being scripted.
You knew I would say that.
Much like a Snickers, you derailed my joke, Phil. I was going to go into this whole diatribe about how that barely makes any sense. But the joke that I wrote it all down is funnier, too. I did write it all down, though. So there's that. The point is, this is such a dumb fucking line. It doesn't even matter. I like my chocolate like I like my hardcore. Cold. I put my chocolate in the freezer, Phil.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But you make sure it doesn't get freezer burned.
I do my best. But a couple bars have gotten a little burned. This is a dumb bit. This is a stupid bit. This is absolutely pissed off, this promo. Mosh-centric hardcore. The song Freezerburn Stomp is just... It starts off sounding like a System of a Down song.
Yeah.
And then it devolves into just pure caveman hardcore. Chains is an unrelenting track. Super nice metal-tinged riffs. The slowdown at the end of Chains makes me want to fist fight a gorilla. The only complaint I have is that we didn't get enough music from this. I really, really liked this. I got a taste for it. I like it freezer burnt, and I want more.
Yeah.
Ontario Biscuit Bashers.
Oh, fuck,
Crimson Asphalt released a track called Shit Cookies. So, this is my first time ever listening to Crimson Asphalt.
Same.
And this was quite a way to be introduced to the band. Yeah, this is hilarious and fun as hell. I went back and checked out their previous stuff, and it's good. It's all good. It's certainly nothing like this.
It's nothing like Shit Cookies.
I love the main riff in this. This is such a funny thing to be able to pull out at a show for no reason. I don't know if this is the first song they would have wanted us to review on here, but it did totally sell me on your band. So there you go.
Yeah, this is probably one of my all-time favorite songs we've ever reviewed here on Locals Only. I recall seeing it on our list, like the name, and I'm like, okay, I listen to like all these songs that we cover a lot of the time in the car. And when it came on, I knew exactly where I was in my list, because you don't forget a song title like Shit Cookies, and then just the song being Shit Cookies. What the fuck? And then it reminds me of the old local band, legendary Klokwise, where they ended every song with the "fuck you." This is a silly song that you bust out live. It's 34 seconds. It's just above that mark where if your song is less than 30 seconds, you don't get paid by Spotify. So they're getting paid. They're getting their money's worth out of this song. This is great, but just be aware of these guys if you invite them to the bake sale.
Yeah. They will shit on your cookies, as implied by that's what they meant, right?
Or serve
or maybe they
poop
cookies with maybe they bake shit into their cookies and then
chocolate turds.
They sell them to unsuspecting.
Just if they're selling cookies at their merch table,
Think
Don't
twice.
buy
Yeah.
Don't buy him. Give him a sniff.
Give him a
sniff and report back.
All right, we have Toronto New Violence Falstaff with the Trash Talk EP, which is exactly what this is. This is an EP full of trash talking. I feel like I was at a baseball game next to a bunch of hecklers who were just like throughout this entire release just yelling stuff just to heckle the baseball players. Needless to say, I'm not willing to fuck around and find out what's going on with this band because they feel like they could probably. I'm glad that I'm reviewing this band from New Brunswick because they would probably beat me up if I'm making fun of it any closer than I already am. This was a fun EP. No, this was great. Falstaff blend like beat down hardcore with like deathcore elements. This is like a Muir meets Pain of Truth. This is like sometimes feel like a rap record with some of the lyrics that are being said in this. I feel like there's small moments that really contribute to like deathcore, especially at like the end of the songs, that the way that they kind of wrap things up. But like there's that one part that's just a bunch of double kick in like the breakdown, which I like. So like they're playing homage to like deathcore, but it's like beat down, hardcore, all these things going on at once, pulling a lot of levers, spinning a lot of plates. There's also some deep breeze that actually happen in this, where like, you know, I believe Omar from Wishender actually shows up in this, which, you know, we love Omar. Omar's a homie. Yeah, he's definitely done some work for us before. So this was, I like Falstaff. I think they're a cool band. They would be really cool to see because there's kind of like this like kind of bands in Ontario. It'd be cool if we had here's a fantasy bill that I would love to see. Bandecfolks presents Reality Denied, and then you got Rock Pile.
That's right. Okay, I'm with you so far.
And then you got Falstaff, and then you could probably there's a lot of other bands you could probably pair with this. But what I'm saying is like this is very in your face, like fight music. This is like mosh fight music. That's like. And the delivery, the vocals delivery is fun and yeah, trash talk EP. This is like we're talking a bunch of trash. This is cool. What would you add to that what would be the fourth band to round everything out, opening up this band that would follow suit? Do you know what I'm saying? Fight music.
Fight music.
Spirit of Vengeance is like up there.
No, that's the answer.
Yeah,
that's literally the answer. You're right. Maybe Die Alone, maybe.
Yeah, Die Alone.
Die Alone has it. They have more of like a loose like street feeling, but they're it's a dangerous show.
Yeah.
I think the answer is Spirit of Vengeance.
Yes.
That's pure fight music.
Pure fight music for sure. That's the fight bill. And if it ever goes down, riots are happening.
Spirit of Vengeance is the only band where like there's a weird part of my brain where it's like I kind of want to get punched in the head. Like,
yeah, sure, yeah.
It just feels right, you know.
To each their own. To each their own.
Yeah, this EP was street style new mosh. It's chock full of murder chords. The vocals are so chant worthy. Bounce riff 'em, bounce riff 'em, bounce riff in this. Drums really shine during the very like the more open parts of the songs. A lot of nice flourishes in the drums. Fuck Around and Find Out is a rager. To me, that song feels like the singer of Fox Lake joined Impending Doom. Cool. I love the sample halfway through it and the speed up in that song, dude. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
One of the better speed ups I've ever heard. I love the digital distortion on the drums at the beginning of Trash Talk. Quite frankly, I love the whole song. All 4 tracks rule. This band captures that same sort of hoodlum energy that an album like Emir's Felony does, but it does it in a more convincing, less like obviously kayfabe way. Like it feels more genuine. Yeah, I'm probably gonna listen to this EP a lot. I really like this. Speaking of violence, Toronto murder music LUZR with the Force Fed EP. Yeah, this came out a little earlier in the year. And I was always aware of their name, and we just listened to so much music that I never really dug too much deeper. And then when I was talking to Matt during the Nakedburn interview, go check it out if you haven't seen it, he brought up that he would want to work with LUZR. And I was like, I'm just going to check out LUZR. And when I saw their name, I thought it was going to be like maybe a bratty punk band.
Yeah.
No. Dude, this is one of my favorite new mosh releases of the year. This is just overflowing with chug riffs, murder chords, electronic effects, tight drumming, menacing low-tuned bounce riffs, ferocious vocal performance on here. This is everything I like in a this is everything I like in a modern metalcore band. The bounce riffs between these massive breakdowns into these the bounce between I have to say more natural. The bounce between these massive breakdowns to these long droning bounce riffs, it just feels effortless. My favorite tracks were Zombie Mode and Force Fed. This album, or EP, I guess, this EP is unpredictable and it is just heavy as fuck. This is so good.
This was super cool. This is production. We're talking about production here. I feel like the production was so high on this, and like maybe these songs wouldn't have been as interesting if the production wasn't right up there. But I think it's doing so, like, this is so cool with all the fun noises that are happening in these songs in between here and there, and all, like, it's so well crafted. It's so well dialed in. Like, someone is like right in they're not missing, they're not skipping a beat on this one. They're really embedded in that sound, and like they're highly focused on what's being played. And I thought it was a creative way how they spelt loser. I thought that was funny too. I thought, like, you take a name like Loser, it sounds like a Midwest name, and like the way they've kind of amplified it, they've kind of metaled it up. You know what I mean?
It feels like a new metal band.
Yeah.
It would fit right in with like Korn and like Limp Bizkit and all and LUZR's playing too. LUZR, like it's so new metal coded.
Yeah, and like would love to see if they. Like, I have to imagine you have to when you play and release something like this, you have to replicate this perfectly live with like backing tracks and like inner ears. You gotta spend the money to make your live set like sound like your release, because it deserves that kind of attention. And like I would like to see if that's like how it is, because like I would also have to imagine like the guitarist probably has like a dance sized floor pedal board. Just like they just gotta like push everything. But yeah, no,
size of a DDR pedal.
Yeah. But this super cool. Force fed by LUZR for sure. All right, we have Toronto True Death, Gutvoid with Breathing Obelisk. This band is cool. I've gotten to play with this band before. We opened up for Augury a couple years ago. Gutvoid has this like blended atmospheric abysmal black metal with like death metal, and they do it seamlessly. It's droney. They've kind of created a sound which would be like a perfect soundtrack to like a real life Shadow of the Colossus kind of moment, like being at the feet of a giant in like a war torn post-apocalyptic land kind of thing going on there. This is like scary, it's heavy, it's all around haunting. This is the 4 tracks that clock in at like 20 plus minutes. I think adding like that death metal element that they do really elevates what's going on here. Personally, I find drone music to be a little less exciting, simply because there's not much going on like vocally, and I'm a guy that typically drives towards vocals. And however, the breaks that the things that happen in this are a little bit more intricate with like the riffs, and that's why they're kind of doing with like the death metal influence with this like droney, sludgy kind of music, giving it a great job to keep my ADHD like well like focused, and you could really get lost in this 4-track EP. You could really, especially on a drive like this is, you could really get lost in some of your thoughts with some of this scary ass fucking music that they got going on here. It does a great job at just like breaking the norm and giving that extra layer of thickness, kind of just like a cake.
Like a cake. Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the idea of like the giant, because for me, this music isn't the music that plays while the giant's there. It's the music that plays after it's left, and there is just death and destruction everywhere. This is atmospheric death metal, and it leans heavily into like the old school lo-fi mix, long ambient drones, deep low vocals, long and multifaceted tracks that just have like an overwhelming sense of like doom and gloom. It's more sullen than it is brutal. I really like the guitar work and the grooves on the song For We Are Many. This EP doesn't really pull any surprises. It doesn't lean into any other genres really at all. This is just some good old-fashioned death metal. Yeah, this might be a little jarring for the audience. It's a new day because you guys put out too much music. So let's jump right back into it. Vancouver Violence Ghaul has put out an EP called Down Here Where I Am. I'm going to say right off the bat, this is another vocalist on this list that reminds me of the OG Your Demise vocalist.
Yes, you got it. You got it.
That's right. That's right. It sounds so good. I love that this like vocal delivery is popping up more and more. This is a really good tone. I love it. This is fast, metal tinged hardcore. The drums add a lot of personality to the tracks on this. A lot of two-step riffs on this one. They're really a two-step focused band. You really can't listen to the CP without nodding your head like the entire time. Whole atmosphere on this release just feels mean. Feels just mean. This is music for the meanies.
I want you to know what I wrote down here. I wrote, I so badly hope you picked up on what I was getting with this band. So I thought this band reminded me so much of Your Demise.
Hell yeah. Hell
and when you said it, and when you said it earlier in the episode, you said something about Your Demise. I was like, that was Ghaul for me. Like I actually thought this sounded so much like Your Demise that I thought you accidentally did that thing where this is going to be a UK band. So I looked them up just to make sure that they weren't from the UK, because that's how much that vocalist sounded. Because I thought maybe he sounds like him because he's British.
Maybe that's what UK vocals sound like, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. That's where my brain went to. No, this is great. This is sick, well-performed, well-produced, chunky, bouncy riffs. Just the proper amount of thrash influence within the hardcore, the hardcore that they're playing. It's super, kind of like Municipal Waste and what's the other one? Reagan Youth. They kind of just get it really thrashy enough, but they're still in that hardcore realm. I also love the band name. I'm a fan of Ghost and Ghoul, so Ghaul. As soon as I saw this, I knew I was going to like it. Or maybe I just told myself that you had to like it because you gotta like all 3 Gs, right? That's how that works.
Right. That's the rule. I think we're on 4G or 5G.
5G.
Or LTE now. I don't know. What are the kids using on their dang phones?
Yeah, this is super fast, head bobbing, makes you want to spin kick your neighbor's annoying Shih Tzu. Is what.
Oh my god. We do not endorse kicking Shih Tzus.
I don't endorse that.
You wrote it.
It's just
that's what it's Ghaul's fault.
It's Ghaul's fault. That's the instinct I got.
They put you in a chihuahua booting hypnosis when you listen to it. So if you're gonna listen to Ghaul, just make sure you're free of any small dogs.
I want to make it clear, not Chihuahua mix, because that's what Buckley is. So no Chihuahuas, strictly Shih Tzus.
I have a Shih Tzu, dude.
You have a Shih Tzu.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Well, he's a halfie, but
yeah, he's still.
I thought
Shih
you said
Tzu
Chihuahuas.
enough.
Now I'm personally offended. You owe Dante a full-on apology.
Next up, we've got Ottawa Alt Rock, fifth, with the exclamation mark being the I, with their single Teeth. Now, fifth have actually become one of my favorite easy core acts coming out of Ontario. First of all, there's not too many easy core acts in general, but this is well branded. They have it a simple, rememberable name, and they've got the quirk with it to kind of just kind of brand it just a little bit further to make it a little bit more memorable. I think they're checking all the boxes that they need to have. All their music is very catchy. Their vocalist certainly knows how to write a catchy chorus. I think that's something that we should note about them. A lot of the singles what we covered about them, the choruses actually get stuck in my head. Tough shit, running out of patience.
It's a great
song. They know what they're playing. I feel like they're well versed in the genre, in the respected genre. Because they kind of expanded off that similar sound. It's well produced and, more importantly, very well written. All musicians are pulling their weight in this track, and just evenly created a well-rounded, catchy song. Borderline radio rock, but it's still underground enough to call it pop punk. Easy core. I loved it. This was cool. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's a catchy-ass song. I really like the 80s, guitar solo on this track. It's so sick. Cool. Hook is super memorable, like you were saying. The vocal performance is really solid on this. Very talented vocalist. Great mix on the rhythm. The bridge on this song is a big standout for me. I really like that bridge. The huge vocals followed by, the solo drums is just so nice. These guys have just, absolutely mastered this, hard rock? I guess, for lack of a better word, almost good hard rock. You know what I mean? Yeah, this sounds great. Up next, Victoria Acid Rock Hillsboro with their White Trash EP.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was the name of both, but I just didn't know what to expect with this. And I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to, actually. It's really cool. It's ethereal, it's dreamy. It's both like has moments of comforting sort of atmospheres, but then anxiety-inducing ones in the same track. Really good mix on this as well. That another intentional use of like lo-fi production, but used intentionally. You can tell that there's like care put into the mix. It's just chosen this lo-fi sound. Yeah, vocals are all over the place on this. From drony, like subdued singing to agonized shouts. The titular song "White Trash" is such a cool, abrasive track. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't think I've heard anything quite like it. It's very much like it doing its own thing. And then the song right after that, "Fell," is like super catchy. Like it's such a different vibe from the first two tracks. I really like it. Yeah, this feels like super artsy and creative. It feels like art for the sake of making art. I'm glad we came across this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these folks actually reached out to us. I believe they hit us up in the emails.
Okay.
And said check us out. Do what you can with us. And I threw it on our list. So I think this actually came out fairly early in this year, but still, here we are reviewing it. This was cool. This was actually like if they took a specimen of Deftones, put them under a microscope, and scientifically removed like the metal influence, like the low end guitar metal influence, because there was still a little bit, like you're saying, like some of the like streaking that was happening, but like more maybe more like an aggressive like helmet or like even snot. Like this had this like 90s kind of vibe going on to it, but like it was done. It was I think hidden in such a way where if you weren't necessarily paying attention, you could just pass this off as like a modern song. This was cool. I really liked, like you said, the track "White Trash." I really liked how simple yet effective that vocal effect they have on like that like it's like distorted, kind of sounds like he's kind of yelling out of a microphone or like a
megaphone. Yeah.
It's very like a staccato delivery, da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da, and it's like just sitting right in the perfect pockets of that song. I always wanted to know what Deftones sounded like without the metal influence, and Hillsboro is here to show us exactly just that. Next up, we have Southern Ontario progressive metalcore, Icy Aura, with their track "Comfortable in Pain." This track reminded me of a slightly heavier like Tyler Carter Issues. Like the singing in this track is very well performed, sitting like right up there with like I'm thinking like Tyler Carter and like Johnny Craig's like that you know what I'm saying, like that Chiodo's kind of like delivery, that like, which is, I don't know how anyone knows how like that. That's my singing voice. Like, I never understand how some vocalists ended up there. I mean, like, we're here for it. It sounds great, but, like, that could be said about a ton of other bands. Anyway, the screams in the song are, like, quite abrasive, too, which is, like, an element I thought, like, that was kind of lacking in some of the bands that I've already mentioned. But, like, the super clean gent, like, what they've got going on, like, that was kind of super popular about maybe, like, 10 years ago or so. I think this is what we're getting out of this. This is another example of how high production can really just push your track a little bit farther. I feel like if this didn't have that crystal clean production, it wouldn't necessarily entice you as much. But it does, and it's great. To me, I can tell that this band wants to tour as much as possible. I can tell that they're hungry. They want to endure the life on the road. I don't know how much touring they do. I actually have no idea. We just cover them here. We just cover in the tracks. But you can tell that these folks are ready to be professional musicians on the road. And you can see that with a lot of other bands that happen. The Northern's another band that comes to mind when I think of that. Just like hungry and just willing to literally throw everything else aside in their life and just make this happen. And that's, a lot of people could say that they want to do that, but being able to show it through your music, I think, and like through your production and through your music videos and everything is just at such a high level. I think it really nails it home. And I think Icy Aura does that. needless to say, I imagine this band does like a rad performance. I imagine they've got the inner ears. I feel like they've got a lot of backtracks going on. And yeah, I'm sure that helps in all that production just to aid and make their live performance just a little bit bigger. So yeah, this was a cool track, comfortable in pain.
Yeah, there's some great use of synths on here. I like the fast, tight rhythms on this. The great tone work. Like, the guitar tone sounds really good, both in the cleans. The high gain stuff sounds excellent, too. Very solid vocal performance. This guy always nails it. The guitar work is straight up beautiful on this track, Phil. The leads on this sound so nice. I really like the bouncy-ass riff we get, like, 2 minutes into it. It's like some motorcycle being ridden into hell sort of shit. And the breakdown at the end really fills out the end of the song well. Yeah, this bangs. I'd love to hear a full length from these guys. I'd love to get, like, a little bit more work. I'm kind of interested. I'd be interested to see what sort of dynamics they play with on a full length. The one-man music machine, Strict Month, friend of the show, Kevin, has released 2 tracks. They also did a cover of, like, a niche H3 song called Nightmare. So check that out as well. It's fun. But we're going to review the actual original work here. This is Strict Month with To Share a Deathbed and Paradox. So I'm going to start with To Share a Bed. It's a speedy, low-key punk track. It's got some pitchy, old-school video game-sounding synths in it. Stellar drum performance, a great cohesive use of that sample throughout. Really anchors the track together, the use of the sample. And it's super catchy like you'd expect. You really hear the NoFX love on this track. Feels like a NoFX song. The synths make a return in the song Paradox as well, but they have more of like a whimsical and like happy vibe to them. This is another speedy one. Guitar work's a little more intricate than the first track there. This has some nice and subtle like stop and start jumps in the verses. I am a big fan of the guitar work on this song. Also a big fan of the ending of this song. It could have easily ended at that like 3-minute mark, but instead he gives us this like fun, infectious ending. Yeah, this is such a cool project. I love hearing music from Kevin. Shout out to you, Kevin. We always get excited when, we get to hear new stuff on the show. And from what it seemed like when we spoke to him, he's sitting on like a mountain of unreleased stuff. So we're excited to hear it all.
Yeah, we love Kevin. He's such a fucking great musician. And, like, to think that he does everything in the band, like, that's such a hard thing to do. And I don't think we give enough of, like, person bands, like, enough credit. Because, like, it's a lot to take on a project and be like, I'm going to do fucking everything. And, like, Strict Month, he does it so well. What's awesome is, like, I very vividly remember when we talked to him on the pod, how much he loved Jeff Rosenstock. And you can really hear that inspiration in a lot of Strict Month's music. It's great because I love Jeff Rosenstock. He kind of was like the one that kind of pushed me to listen to it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But I'm also getting like Say Anything, Death Cab, and like even Propaganda with some of the riffing that he's doing. Should also be knowing that like it's unbelievable how he manages to excel at every kind, like the synths to the singing to the drum. I mean, we obviously know that like Kevin is first and foremost a drummer, so obviously the drumming's always going to be good. Like we always know that, but it's like everything else is so on point with this, and he knows how to write a song, and the fact that he's got a mountain of content that he's just sitting on is unbelievable. So Kevin, if you're watching, we know that we are. I'm curious, how long does it take you to write a song? Because do you like? Is there a certain way you go about every song, or is it different every time?
What do you start with? Is it guitar?
Yeah, what do you start with? Do you have bass? Yeah, that's actually what I have down here. Like, is it lyrics that take a forefront, or is that something that you come back to after? I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious because these songs are really well written, and I'm just curious where you start when you are trying to do a one-man band. Montreal Moshmen in Scarfold have a new EP out. Beats for the Street Beatings. Now, I like to think of Scarfold as like Canada's own Hatebreed. These guys are like seasoned veterans, and they know how to bring like the tough guy hardcore. I met these folks. We played Elijah, the drummer from Trauma Model's house, when we did this, like when Sinner and Trauma Model did a tour out east, like weeks before lockdown happened. And we played a house show with Scarfold, and like So like I actually got to bro out with these guys. These are, like I said, these are older folks. They've been in the game for a while, so they kind of, I don't know. They're solid. They're hardworking. I think their drummer even runs a merch business. The vocalist is super energetic. Sure, maybe this music isn't necessarily the most original sounding stuff, but what's cool about this is like they're very true to what they're playing. So it's like, yeah, you have Madball, you have Hatebreed, but those bands are from fucking New York, and I don't know where, I can't remember where Hatebreed's from, but like we get our own Hatebreed, and I think it's Scarfold, and I think these guys do a great job at what they're doing. Like they make me want to get angry in the pit and throw stiff fists around, and like that's not like me, man. That's not my bag, baby. It's not my bag.
Except when Scarfold's on. The first thing I wrote down was absolute fight music. This is groovy, beat-down tinged hardcore, nice throaty vocal deliverance, very groove-focused rhythm section, always got nod and riffs going off. Cracked is a great intro track. It's just all killer, no filler. Splatterhouse keeps up the momentum really well. Solid track, love the DJ scratching on it. And then they have like a bunch of kind of cool features. They get the vocalist to guilt trip on Spine Crusher, which, first of all, great song name. That's a pretty cool get. They're a pretty big band as far as I understand, and his part sounds great. The song The Serpent Egg has a bit more of a metal vibe going on with the guitars. Probably one of my favorite tracks on here. They are all good. So the song Raining Maggots, which this is another EP with just great song names on it.
Yeah, Splatterhouse is good too.
Yeah, this features the vocalist from Sujeira, who I wasn't familiar with, but they're from Brazil, and that's where I learned capoeira. So that's, yeah, this is an awesome EP, and I'll be spinning this one a lot. And I want to apologize in advance if I say this wrong. I could only go by the internet. Sorry, I am an uncultured white buffoon. Anishinaabe alternative hip-hop artist Wiidaaseh has released a new single called Turned King. Actually, as of recording this, they've released an entire EP, so on the next episode, we are going to listen to the whole thing. We'll give our thoughts on that, but we wanted to get to this because we've been falling behind, so we're just going to do this track for now. We'll get into the EP on the next episode, so check that out. This is a really cool and haunting song. I really like the production. Very spooky. I love the vocal sample, the wobbly synths in it. It has an old school sort of like boom bap feeling to it. It has a nice consistent flow throughout that feels like it leans into that sort of old school flow style. Lots of character in his voice. It starts very bold and serious, and then he goes into this really like laid back sort of like flow and tone and slowly eases back into bringing the energy up. It's really good. It sounds like very one takey. Yeah, it's like a big flex track too. Just a big ass flex track. Really cool, really sick. Shout out you.
Yeah, no, I love when first of all, I love when you throw rap tracks on locals only because I'm so out of touch when it comes to local hip hop, and I love to hear it because it's so refreshing to hear when you're not subjected to something like a mainstream track. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like there's a refreshing feeling about hearing something that's not necessarily produced at such an incredibly high level. But this was cool because I also, that being said, I also really appreciate like experimental and like abstract kind of like rap. Like that's where I like a lot of some like unique artists, and I feel like this was really cool. Like this was like kind of like an early 2000s inspired beat. It was just like a nice cut up sample. The vocal delivery was unique. I was getting like flavors of like Murs, like Wheezy, and like Vince Staples, like just kind of like different kind of flavors. But obviously, unique in its own way. Very self-aware, confident, and coherent is what I wrote down. I love that he brags that he produced the beat and he like raps over it. But not that I think that needs to be a bigger norm, but you
put respect on that. That's cool as hell.
Yeah, you put respect on that for sure. I also checked out Drying Out too. So
okay, cool. I haven't listened to that one yet.
And well, typically a lot with my locals only, they're just like I cover just a lot of it. I don't dissect it nearly as well as you do, but I was impressed. This was great. I feel like artists that are kind of like underground and like unsigned have to really pull their punches in rap because there's crazy amount of it happening at such a high velocity that you really gotta like pull your punch and like make sure that you're knocking it out every time. And this was incredible. This was great. And you've said we've listened to this artist before. I don't know if I have. I don't know if I remember. We listen to a lot of artists, but
maybe
I've definitely saved.
Maybe we haven't. Maybe this is the first time. Maybe I've just posted some of their singles on Instagram before.
Yeah, I've definitely saved them in my library. This was something I kept going back to for sure. Yeah, this was doing all the work it needs to be doing to make it like it didn't suck in any way. The production was great for like somebody who was on. This is great. Toronto experimental rap artist. We got Fuh Nothing with Unless It's Noise, and I remember you us covering this artist last year. This is one of your buddies, right?
Yeah. Personal friend, yeah. I don't know if they like having their actual name out there, so we'll avoid saying it.
That's fine.
Yeah, personal friend of me and my brother, especially my brother.
I'm just getting like Denzel Curry vibes from this.
That's big. He'll love that.
Vocal delivery and in like the way that the beat sounds too. Like there's like kind of like video game but like trappy kind of sound. And yeah, no, the punchlines were solid on this. This was a fun track. Yeah, really cool. This was another one where I'm like, damn, like we got to be covering more hip hop on this locals only because this was great.
Yeah, he's a mega talented rapper producer. He's put out a nice short track here, aggressive flow over it, spacey, low key beat. Really, really like the production on here. If you're into experimental rap, this is someone you'll absolutely have to check out. He's such a low key artist. He really doesn't try to push himself on social media or anything like that. Very low key, such a perfectionist with his work. I'll never stop singing his praises. The EP we talked about last year, Big Gorilla Dance, is such a stellar piece of work. If you're a fan of like JPEG Mafia or Danny Brown or like Injury Reserve, anything that falls into that sort of camp, you are doing yourself a total disservice by not listening to this guy, especially while he's at such a low key level right now. Like this is like, don't sleep. If there's anyone around here who's gonna like be put, it's so hard to explain. He reminds me of JPEG Mafia. His production style is so interesting. It's so unique. I just wish more people. He's making rounds. He has like a scene that he plays around and stuff. I think like in the States and stuff like that. I don't follow him too closely in that regard, but I just like he's so fucking good. It's so good, and I feel like he's so slept on when I think about like the type of audience that in my mind he deserves to have. So shout out you. You're sick as hell. Let's get this in front of more people in whatever way is necessary. I just wish more people could hear this. I think a decent amount of people do, but I want this guy to pop. I want everyone who's into rap in at least Canada to understand like how talented this individual is. So I'm gonna stop glazing. But yeah, I'm gonna shout him out as much as I can on this channel because he's just such a great dude and so talented. We're talking about Buffalo Hardcore Selfish Act with their two promos, their promo Wellness Check. This is two big tracks from Selfish Act, both with some guest vocal features, I'm assuming from people in the Buffalo hardcore scene. This is fast and pissed off hardcore, no bells, no whistles, just that raw, baby. Selfish Act has quickly become friends of the Ontario hardcore scene. They're playing down here all the time. I see their vocalist at shows all the time and stuff. So if you see Selfish Act is on a bill, go see them. They have to come over the border to play for us, and they do it a lot. Same with Jewel Tone, to be honest. Go see Jewel Tone. But yeah, shout out to our Buffalo brothers. We love you guys. These guys just put out a release on Wormwood, and they rule.
I was getting completely different flavors here. First of all, I wrote down that like the production really kind of made this band sound very authentic and kind of like in like a new an
early 2000s like post-hardcore scene, and this I was getting like Poison the Well, Haste the Day, and like
yeah,
like
I was
Devil
just
Wears
getting
Prada.
straight hardcore when I listened to it.
I really like how like the drums solidified the sound. Another thing that I found interesting about this was like I had no idea what I was getting going into this, and I was judging a book by its cover. So, and I thought we were gonna get some like depressing shoegaze emo, and that wasn't the case at all. We got some like some really cool sounding stuff. And I think the band name threw me off. It felt like I wasn't expecting to hear what I was hearing because of the band name, and I think that was the title of this
Wellness Check.
EP. Yeah, Wellness Check. I just wasn't sure what we were gonna get, but like kind of swept me off my feet. Really wasn't sure. Potentially, maybe it's a misguide on purpose. Who knows? I don't know. Would be curious how to see what these. Is this their only release?
No, they have an EP before this and a couple singles and stuff. And actually, their EP before this even has like a cleaner production on it and stuff. If you're looking to hear them with a little more polish, they have an EP that sounds a little bit more cleaned up. Okay. This was just, I think, a promo. I'm not sure. Just 2 tracks under a name where neither of the tracks are named that. So maybe it's a 2-song EP. Is that a thing? That's probably a thing, right?
I think that's something.
Who knows? It ruled.
I wrote down they probably put on an electrifying performance.
They do.
I got that from the music. Next up we have Destined to Burn with their songs Disassociation and a self-titled track Destined to Burn. One of them featuring Spirit of Vengeance too. This is Southern Ontario slam. This is what we love from them. This was like Crowbar. This was delivering what it needed to be doing. This is music that, when you're a guy like my size, you stay the fuck out of the pit. You hang out by the merch table because you are going to get your teeth knocked out. And dental is not free here in Canada, despite what you think being our healthcare being free.
Yeah. It's a very little of it feels free. But I guess if I break my leg, I'm not paying it off the rest of my life.
That's
true.
Nice. That's true. That's not bad. No, so yeah, very heavy, like even kind of like that thick as blood, but still like more like, I don't know, like Zabulba, kind of like Harm's Way, like really like music that's been like written that is definitely to maximize pit movement. Like they figured it out, and like the vocals just sound like a friggin' giant Goliath is just going like this fucking just. It's scary.
Nothing gets me more excited than when a band self-titles a song with their band name. Like, it gets my, blood going. It makes me feel good. Destined to Burn comes through with some blackened beatdown. There's low bellowing vocals all over this, like you were saying. Very steady, nice, strong, chuggy riffs. And such a good feature from the Spirit of Vengeance vocalist on this track. The track Disassociation is the one that features the vocalist of Spirit of Vengeance. Very, very good track. Solid band. Heavy as fuck. Pure pitch shit. Let's go. The Countryside Bird Pervs Avem are back at it again. This track is called Gulls. This is a tongue-in-cheek pop-punk song that is literally just explaining gulls like the bird in depth. It's just describing them, talking about things they do. It's catchy. It's fun as hell. If you've heard this band, you know what you're in for. And if you haven't checked this band out, I promise, despite how weird the premise seems to be when we bring it up, this is genuinely funny. I said it before. I typically hate comedy music. Like, it bothers me normally. It's hard for me to find comedy music funny. And the way they just play this completely straight and so campy just makes it so much funnier. I'm becoming quite the bird perv myself, Phil.
Yeah, no, I loved this track. I love this band so much, actually. It feels like a treat anytime we get to sit down and cover the band. Bird enthusiasts. That's everything. They breathe, sleep, and more than likely eat birds because it's chicken. Maybe they don't.
We should have them
down
on the
below,
show. Ask them. Yeah, do you guys eat birds?
It's upbeat, it's catchy, it's silly, all around enjoyable. I so badly want to play the show with this band with Hellbent. I think we would just match our
interesting
energy,
bell,
silly, just sonically would we kind of have we lean more like a hardcore aggressive, and but they're more like a kind of like a Ramones kind of upbeat punk. Kind of like Masked Intruder, like that's what or like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, kind of like that really upbeat, kind of like Less Than Jake even. It's super cool. Pro Seagull. This doesn't like if it goes against the norm because everybody hates seagulls, right? Everybody hates seagulls.
Right? Why did it didn't occur to me that it just? Sorry, I'm ashamed of myself. It didn't occur to me that gulls is just short for seagulls. I thought gulls were a separate bird.
Yeah, no, this is a seagull song, and this is all about how like they're great. These are lovely birds. We're not supposed to hate them.
We should.
Next up, we have Hog Funk artists Small Man, Big Mouth with their record Northern Aggression. This was very ambitious. A creative release by the band. Kept me on my toes. Kept me guessing where the band was going to take me next. Sonically speaking, this is what I would imagine like an indie punk rock band if they appointed vocal duties to a zombie. It's very abrasive, but for what's being played, because they're actually kind of carving out their own lane, like unapologetically, considering like what they're doing. There's a lot of punk, there's metal, there's indie rock, there's hardcore. Every song sounds incredibly different. I particularly enjoyed the song titles. I couldn't remember. There was a lot of things that stood out about each one of them, but the song titles were so obscure that I had a hard time remembering which was what. But that was something I'm always a fan of. That can go back to like any band like The Chariot and whatnot, Norma Jean.
Yeah, very interesting and eclectic set of tracks. This is a two-piece band. So no guitarist, just a bassist and a drummer, similar to bands like Cross Dog or like more famously Death from Above. Totally different sound from both of those bands. Yep. A lot of these songs will sound literally like nothing you've ever heard before. Whether it's the song Reverend Dirt Kicker, which has like a bluesy bass line and very unhinged vocals in it. There's the doomy and gloomy Keep the Bugs Off Your Grass or The Bear Off Your Ass, which gave me like some Chat Pile vibes even. Or the punky and driving I Hate Your Fucking Band. That's a cool song. Everything about this is completely outside of the box. It feels like art for the sake of art. No trend chasing at all. Original. Not like anything I've ever heard. Very cool. Toronto spellcasters Expel with their album The Desire for Change. The Sewer Gators or the Ninja Turtles or whatever the fuck I've been calling them this whole time are here with a full release, and it's just as gross, wet, and moshy as I was hoping for. There's a great mix of something more fuzzy and with more character and personality on this than what you'd get in a typical hardcore release. A lot of records can start to sound very homogenized in heavy music when everyone's using the same amp sim and the same effect chains and rendering and mixing things the same way. And this band feels like it has like a unique brand new tone. Like you immediately know you're listening to an Expel song just when the drums and guitar come in. This was mixed and recorded by Klokwise frontman Jesse Turnbull.
Oh, cool.
Yep. Songwriting wise, they're like hardcore punk tracks with more of an emphasis on creativity and capturing a menacing vibe than just being like your typical breakdown, two-step breakdown formula. Not that we don't love that formula. That's a great formula. I eat it up, especially me. I'm so caveman brained when it comes to music. But I like this with Expel. It sets them apart as something a little more interesting to me. Favorite tracks on this were Snakes, Stakeholders, and I really, really like the track Pushing.
So yeah, we covered all the EPs, singles coming up to this. This is like power violent punk band, but they have like a really clear like rock and roll inspiration going on. Like with like it bleeds through like a very like groovy. I really like this. This is super cool. I can actually see this release being appealing to most people. I could see it being like because it's just got this like very accessible like grungy kind of like, I don't know. There's something that it feels like it's not totally off-putting when people listen to like so for some people who don't listening to like
listen to music that has screaming, right? Like almost immediately they'll turn it off. This is something you can even step into because like this has got a kind of like a rock and roll element. That's what I've been saying, and like that's what the production's doing well with it. Like it's like a fuzz. Everything seems like it's very analog and kind of like just like really kind of like 70s sounding with like an early modern tone. And I mean, come on. Let's talk about the cover. Did you get the cover? The fire starter. The fire starter. They did the by Prodigy.
I didn't realize it was a cover. I just thought it was such. I thought it was just such a weird song. It's the last song, right? I think. Am I right? I need to check now. I'm pretty sure it's the last song. I remember just thinking. Yeah, and I remember just thinking the last song feels really different from the rest. I didn't realize it was a cover.
Right on. Next up, we have Woodstock Math Blasters, Skuzz, with their newest EP, Angelina Joel. They have
EP,
just Joel?
No, Angelina Joel EP. It's so clever.
Oh, that's so clever. I didn't get it. With their... We're leaving that in. That's clever.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing, right?
Yeah, no, this is... I think their guitarist, Mitch, is like an old homie. Him and I actually met at like a title fight show. And he came up to me and like he's like, "You play in that band Shook?" When I played in that band with like Shook.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we did some stuff. And like he's been like he's came out and saw like Hellbent's like first show, so it's I really like to see Skuzz because they kind of remind me like they've got the same kind of like attitude. If you've ever seen any of their like Facebook posts or social posts, it's very like
silly.
Yeah, they're very silly. They don't take anything seriously, but like they do the music, it's very like aggressive. Kind of it's just like in the lane of like Chariot, like a lot of fuzzy and buzzing and like aggressive, just like a lot of attitude attached to it. That's what it was like. It's very unique. It's super cool. And they have this is like the 4th installment of the EPs where they have the celebrities with the double eyes. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, when they do a live set, their vocalist has like the ski mask on.
I think they all do.
Oh, they all do it.
I think they're all masked up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe I gave an identity away. Whoops.
It feels like a natural continuation of the previous EP. The mix and the lo-fi quality is remaining relatively similar. I find that the drums and the guitar sounds a little more full. Vocals are a little louder and a little more filled out on this one. Nice mathy rhythms and dissonant chords, great drum fills. There's a few moments on this album that do remind me of Every Time I Die. Particularly in Parts Unknown. I think it's the mix on it that makes me hear from Parts Unknown on there. But yeah, it's something about it was scratching that Every Time I Die itch that I've been having. Awesome release. These guys look like they've been playing a lot of shows lately. I'd like to see them soon. I haven't been able to check them out yet. Favorite tracks were Extinction Event and Kotov Syndrome. Both great. All great, but both great. Slightly greater, in my opinion, I guess. We are on the final band. This is Calgary Chaos Trench with their album Between Inverted Worlds. This is a very interesting blend of beatdown, nu metal, metalcore, probably a lot of other things. Lots of headbanging grooves in here. Interesting electronic layering and production. There's a slightly lo-fi production that gives it a condensed sort of hazy feeling. It gives like a suffocating sort of atmosphere to it, just the way it's been condensed. And man, the feature list on this one is absurd. You get Andrew from Comeback Kid, who absolutely kills it on the track Path of Pain. You've got Kyle from Wake. You've got the vocalist of Cult of Luna. And then to top it off, dude, you get Dallas Green on a track. Dallas Green's on Dust to Bone. You get Dallas Green on a track, and guess what? They use him really, really well. This is a super heavy band. I didn't know how they were going to incorporate him as we were moving towards him on this list. And they used him so well, almost in like they like layer him up and then they give him this big isolated part by himself. Great track. My favorite songs were New Skin Protocol and Final Odyssey. Yeah, big sounding Canadian band doing big things. You love to see it.
I wasn't paying that much attention. That was Dallas Green at the end there. I didn't.
Yeah, the song Dust and Bone.
I heard him, and I didn't know that was Dallas. I didn't pull out the phone. I listen to this stuff when I'm driving, so I don't actually see anything. But this was really cool. I thought I was gonna hear some like Grimes ass like indie fucking stuff when this record first started, like especially with like that arpeggiated stuff. And then, like, we quickly jumped into, like, this, like, really heavy tune. Yeah, the production was super high. Super, super high on this. This is a Canadian band. This is crazy. This is, like... What they do with this music is they do exactly what, like, a band like Knock Loose or, like, even, like, an EDM artist does. They know how to build it up, break it down, give you the drop, give you two steps, and like they're and what otherwise could be boring sounding music if it didn't necessarily have all the sounds and quirks that are happening within all the crevices of the song. I don't think it would be nearly as good, but that's why it's good. You could say that about any band though. You could say that about Knock Loose as well, right? They make it sound that high of production. Like it's crazy how big we sound with Trench. This is like, I feel like this is a band that like this is a band where you're writing in the studio, because I can't imagine like you come to a jam and you're like, check out these fucking like sounds and stuff I got going on. Like you would have to do it, I feel like
meticulously.
Maybe, yeah. And that's what's also really impressive about this, because if you're in a band, like, being in a studio and being cooped up in there is not always the funnest thing to do. And when you're creating cool music like this is really rad. They're doing lots of cool stuff. They're blending it really well. I really like this. Trench. Hell yeah. This is another one that I pulled from this list that I was like going to go back to.
All right, guys, that is it. We finally got through this daunting list. That is the end of episode 11 of Locals Only. Thank you so much for checking this out. We hope that you found some new cool bands that you might not have been aware of. If you're one of the bands checking out what we thought of you, we hope you liked it. We do it because we care about you guys. We want you guys to feel heard. We want you guys to feel recognized. And now for our own little housekeeping here, if you like this video, if you appreciate any amount of what we did here, a like, a subscribe, and a comment really, really helps us out, and it's totally free. We have a join button. You can give us a couple dollars to help us keep this thing going. We have a Lander affiliation. If you're interested in any mixing or mastering software, you can go ahead and give our link a little click and see what type of money we can save you and see if that's something you'd be interested in. Have I forgotten anything?
I think you got it, buddy.
I think we got it all. All right.